Okay, well, my name's Will Davis, and this event is sponsored by Rotoract. We're putting on this event. If you don't know what it is, we do a lot of nonprofit work. We basically give back to the community. The idea behind it is service above self. That is the motto, and that's what Rotary and Rotoract live by. We have meetings on Thursdays at 1:30 at C211, 211. It's right across from ASG. You know where that is. And yeah, and today we have a special guest. His name is Dave Brook, and he is a speaker who talks about gratitude, feeling grateful for the life you have, and also helping others feel grateful for the life they have. So yeah, I'll let him take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Will. I'm not going to use a microphone. I tend to speak pretty loud, so hopefully everybody can hear. Of course, I'm always fond to see everybody in the front row. Person after my own heart. I never liked the people in the front row because they're always the first one to raise their hands. Quick question. How many people here have suffered a significant personal loss in your life? About 2/3. I am fortunate enough to speak from groups to a couple of thousand in a church recently. And then recently I did, a couple weeks before that, I did a rest home, and there was like 2 people. So it was just the 3 of us sitting at a table. And they said they forgot to put up the, the sign. I said, that's fine. The 3 of us will have just a great time. But what happens is that most people in most places I go, 90% of the people raise their hands. It doesn't matter if they're as young as you folks are, or as even some of the, of course, you can imagine the rest home, every single person raises their hand. I'd like to tell you what happened to me. My significant personal loss, it was September 29th, 1998. It was a Tuesday. I woke up and I looked over to my right, and my wife wasn't in bed, 6 in the morning. I thought, this is strange. I wonder what happened. Just as I'm wondering where she is, my little 4-year-old son, Connor, comes walking in. He says, where's Mom? I don't know. Let's see if we can find her. So we get out and we walk down the hallway. My 14-year-old son, Kyle, same question. We don't know. So we look in a couple of rooms, and we walk down the hallway, and we look downstairs, and she's crumpled over in front of the washer and dryer downstairs. Doesn't look good. So we go running down there. I turn her over, and there's this stuff coming out of her mouth and stuff, and it doesn't look good, as I mentioned. Connor starts crying. Kyle's beside himself. I said, go call the police, call the fire, call whatever. And within a matter of 5 or 10 minutes, there was probably 15 or 25 people in our house. And they had all that electronic stuff and the tubes and all those things you've seen on TV. Most surrealistic thing I'd ever been through in my life. Well, for those of you that raised your hands, whether you've had a significant personal loss, personally, financially, emotionally, family, it doesn't matter. But for those of you that have been around something like this, one of the things that I noticed is that time loses all measure. And I didn't know how much time had gone by, and this little short fire person comes over to me and says, Mr. Brook, we've been working on your wife for an hour and a half, and we still don't have a heartbeat. Would you like us to continue? And even when you're in a situation like that, your brain still manages to compute a little bit, and I thought, an hour and a half, no heartbeat. And I thought about it for a few minutes. And I said, no, you can stop. And she was dead. She's 38 years old. As I mentioned, my boys were 4 and 14. And what I noticed is that in my life, this was in 1998, so this is 15 years ago, 16 years ago. It wasn't just that I'd lost my wife. Before that, I had lost my mother. She was manic depressive, and then she died of cancer. My father, pretty doggone good attorney in downtown Seattle, he killed himself, something I never quite understood. And I had example after person that had died on me. And I won't spend much time on that, because what I talk about the most is how what I found with gratitude and how it can change you is how it can help you. But I like to establish these shoes have walked down these roads before. And when you lose that many people, of the 20 or 25 I could list just like that, I'd say half of them were of their own hand. Prescription medication, pills, coke, crack, you name it. Livers with booze. It was terrible. Suicide. And I thought, you know what? Somewhere along the line, I'm going to have to figure out something that's going to help me cope with this. Because all these coping mechanisms out there are very destructive, deadly in many cases. So one of the things I realize is it depends a lot on how you look at something. And I remember 2 or 3 days after that happened, I walked upstairs, had a little deck, lived by Green Lake in Seattle, and I remember just like yesterday pinching my skin and just going, wow, I don't think I can do this after all those things that had happened to me. And I kind of looked up at the sky, and for the first time in my life, I realized why people killed themselves. It's tough. I don't think I can do this. Connor can't stop crying. Kyle's beside himself. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I made a decision right there. I'm not doing that. And once you take that off the table, it's no longer a choice. So you just exit off. It's not something I'm going to do. We didn't live that far from the Aurora Bridge. It would have been tough. Just walk over there, just step over. It's done. You're out of the pain. But I'm not going to do it. But I realized it has a lot to do with how you look at something. So I'd like you to all stand up if you'd be so kind. Just get this stretched out a little bit. Don't lose your red paper. We're going to use that in a little bit. But just take your right arm and just start turning it, stretch it out, and turn it in a clockwise manner. Now, there's no clock in here, so if anybody is not sure about clockwise, because it's a digital world we're in now, especially your generation. So keep it turning clockwise, and now just start. Is everybody going clockwise? Making sure. So now as you keep it going clockwise, you guys are killing me. Start bringing it slowly down. Slowly down. Keep it going clockwise. Forehead, eyes, nose, chin, chest, and now bring it down to your waist. Now what direction is it going? Bueller? Anybody? Who said that? Who said counterclockwise? Thank you, Will. Okay, you can sit down. Now it's going counterclockwise. There's always a few people going, what the hell just happened? I happen to get an undergraduate degree from the University of Washington. I have friends of mine that have masters, and here we are at Bellevue College. Doctorates, and a couple of them, actually a number of them come, hey, I saw you speak the other day. What's the story on that circle thing? Can you tell us how that thing works? I go, I thought you were a PhD. No, I said, you knucklehead. You look at it from the top, you look at it from the bottom. It's just my way of saying there's the glass half full, the cups of coffee over there are half empty. It's just how you look at something. Well, I decided I was going to survive this. And I was going to look at this from a much different standpoint. And I noticed what had happened to Dana, she got addicted to prescription medication. And what happened when she overdosed on this Vicodin and Oxycontin, these are names we've all heard of. But before that, that's what killed her. Before that, she'd gone into treatment for addiction 3 different times. And then she was arrested. I've never seen somebody with their hands behind their back in cuffs for prescription fraud, because she took the little pads and filled them out and turned them into the prescription or the pharmacy. But I went to see this doctor. He was the prescription, or the addiction specialist rather. And he says, are you David Brooke? Are you Dana's husband? Yep, come on in, sit down. And he was kind of forceful about it. He said, I need to tell you what you're up against. And he points out to a room about this size, I don't know, 25, 30 people. She's a doctor, he's an attorney, and every one of them were addicted to something. He says, I want to let you know what you're up against. 1 in 20 will make it back to a normal life. Just 1. And of the 19 that don't, about half of them will be dead in the next year. And she died about 9 months later. I wouldn't have believed it. I absolutely wouldn't have believed it. 38 years old, phenomenal shape. Our first date was running Green Lake. But that's what happens. But I notice I've really paid attention to that 1 in 20, because that's 5%. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, about how, are you the 1 or are you one of the 19? I was talking to Will and Kevin when I came in about how being on time. 20 people will tell you they're going to be on time, but how many are actually on time? I don't know. I mean, are you the 1 or are you the 19? It just seemed like that was the case. But what I realized is when I went back, I had people listen to me and I go, boy, I don't know about your story. That was pretty depressing the way you started. And I go, well, I want you to pay attention. So I don't use PowerPoint. I get to look at every one of these. Heavy? How do you pronounce it? Hevel. God, I just love that. I'm changing my name to that name. David is such a boring name. But every single person I get to look at is on their own journey. And it depends on how you are going to approach these types of things. But there's a couple of basic things that's kind of neat to figure out. One is you just can't give up. You can't. I'm 64 years old. You guys are all so young here. You look, God, he doesn't look a day over 63. I can just tell by those faces. But it goes by fast. And you can't give up. There's a ton of examples of people that never gave up. Walt Disney went to 200 or 300 banks to get financing for Disneyland. Was told nobody's going to go to some theme park in the middle of California with a bunch of Ferris wheels. On and on and on and on. There's many, many examples of that. But you can't. It's so easy to give up. So many people just pack it in. And so I remember thinking, I didn't understand gratitude yet, but I knew I was going to raise these two sons. So I better start figuring out some things to do. And another one was, you got to get rid of stuff in your brain. And you got to make room for gratitude. And one of the ways to do that is to get rid of crud. For those of you that drive, Mark, Will's dad, and I drove in together. We were trying to find a parking space and so forth. I want you to pay attention to your cars if you get into them either later today or tomorrow or what have you. And notice the size of this windshield out there. It's this deep and it's about this wide. And then notice the rearview mirror is about this size. And just kind of keep that in proportion. You guys are all so young. Your lives are all in front of you. The vast majority of them are in front of you. But keep it in proportion. That's about 200 to 1. Now, if you're looking in the rearview mirror and you see some flashing blue lights, I admit you got to pull over. Saw that earlier today. But mostly pay attention to what's in front of you. People will drive over junk in their life, and then they pick it up behind them, put it in front of them, and drive over it again. And even though I know you're all pretty young here, one of the perfect examples is ex-boyfriends and girlfriends. They're still talking about that, blah, blah, blah. I go, didn't you break up like 2 years ago? Well, it was actually 10 years ago. Are you still talking about him or her? It's over. It's done. Move on. So one of the things that you have to do, you don't have to, but I suggest it, is you have to think about this crap that's in your brain and get rid of it. So I'd like you to grab that little piece of red paper, and let me get an extra one if I may. Is that yours?
Yep.
Is there a red extra piece around? Yeah, no, it's okay. You keep going over here. So the thing about red, and I hope, does everybody have a pen? Because I had extra pens. So let me tell you a little bit about red. One of the advantages of red paper is when you write in it, people can't see what you wrote very well. It's kind of hard to read the pen on red. So that's one of the reasons why it's red. And what you're going to write on it here in a second is you're not going to want anybody to see. So don't be watching people look at you from the side. So what I'm going to do, because as I mentioned, it's like, have you ever driven by these complexes like cul-de-sacs and stuff, and somebody's garage door is open and the whole garage is full of stuff from top to bottom, and there's like a little alleyway down the center, and it's boxes from top to bottom, and I just go, who has that much junk? My gosh. Well, we don't want to get junk in our brain. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to give you, you guys are young, so you're only going to get a minute. Older groups I give 2 minutes. I'm going to give you 1 minute, and I want you as fast as you can to write down the biggest mistakes you've made, the biggest regrets, the biggest wrong moves you've made that's just between you, yourself, and I. As fast as you can, I want you to write it down in 60 seconds. Go. About 30 seconds. Ten seconds. Stop. Thank you. All right. So if anybody sees anybody looking at their paper, will you raise your hand and tell me, and I'll come over and slap them. It's pretty personal. When I did this exercise, I raised my hand and said, I need about a half hour. I think I'd made so many mistakes and goof-ups in my life. Well, what these things represent are decisions of things that happened in your past that you want to forget about. Just like that stuff you drive over, you've already driven over it, forget about it and move on. So I mentioned red papers because people can't see it next to you. Another big thing is if you go to a stoplight, green means what? And what's red mean? Thank you. So we're going to stop thinking about this stuff. So now I'm going to give you precisely 30 seconds to rip that into as many pieces as you can, and the person has the most pieces, I'll give them a book. Go. 30 seconds is all you get. And just put the pile in front of you. This will be a tough one to judge. I think Kevin's already rocking and rolling over there. Actually, I may have a certain judge from the back that may be more impartial. 10 seconds. Okay, and stop. All right, so, yeah, this is always going to be difficult. Holy oh cow.
What is this?
Man,
You shouldn't even tear it.
don't read it. Let's see here. And keep an eye on these too. I've seen people try to tape them together from their friend. And I go, don't you be looking at somebody else's. Man, oh man, this is pretty good. That's pretty good right there. Well, look at you guys. I like this. I like the tearing techniques too.
Mine's not that good.
Man, yours is pretty good too. Holy oh cow. All right, I'll tell you what we're going to do later on. Gosh, there's 2 or 3. But tell you what we'll do. When we're done, keep them in a little pile. And some of those, like, Kevin, is that yours? Is that yours? Yeah, this is pretty good. And just bring them up to me afterwards. I might give away a couple, just because there's quite a few that are pretty close. So it's always harder because when I get some of the shreds. Yeah, no give them to the next person too. There's none of that too. I don't want any cheating here. But yeah, after we're done, bring them on over, and I'll if there's a couple that are there near the top, we'll do it together. So the whole idea behind that exercise is to get rid of this crap. It's very personal. It's very private. There's some things I've done in my life. I don't care if I'm 64 or an average age of 18 or 19, like you guys, whatever average age we might have here, that I just wish I hadn't done it, but it's over, it's done, it's behind me, and I'm moving past it. We're not perfect beings, and so you got to get rid of this crud. You got to make room for something that's going to fill your brain with good stuff, in this case, gratitude. But as I mentioned earlier, too, you can't give up. People give up all the time. You see it in the news and friends, and I don't even want to ask if somebody's lost anybody to suicide or pills or any of this kind of stuff. It's just such a frustrating subject for me, especially when you're as young as you folks are. But Connor, my 4-year-old, really struggled after Dana died. And he watched me, as I said, I didn't tell him at the time, I said, I'm not going to go jump off a bridge. I'm going to stick it through. I'm going to find a way to just navigate through this nightmare that we had. And then we ended up losing our house and all our money because of the pills. We had to go live with a friend. It wasn't just Dana's death, it was everything. But I'm not going to throw it in the towel. So he goes to the preschool, and I said, well, your son is really messed up. He's got a lot of problems. I said, his mom just died 6 months ago. Yeah, I know. But we're going to put him through a bunch of tests and stuff. And so they had him bouncing balls and doing all this kind of stuff. And I could barely keep it together watching this poor little guy being told he's not like the rest of the 4.5-year-olds. But when it was over, they said, have him go wait over there. And they sat me down and they said, he's going to need this IEP, all this whole thing was this long. And when it was all done, I said, we live by Green Lake, as I mentioned. I said, well, I'll tell you, he's going to be successful. In fact, I think someday he's going to go to Roosevelt High School and he's going to be the starting quarterback. She starts laughing. Yeah, no. He's not going to do well in school and he's not going to do well in sports. So I said, okay, thank you. And I walked out to the car and I just burst into tears. And I couldn't stop crying for about a half hour. So we drove home. Connor kept saying, Daddy, what's wrong? Can't tell you. Everything's fine, Connor. But Connor kept struggling. First grade, I had to hold him back in first grade. Second, third, fourth, he was playing sports, he wanted to play baseball, he couldn't play baseball. He kept trying. I mean, T-ball, you're familiar with T-ball. The ball doesn't move, it just sits on the tee. How hard is it to hit the ball? Connor's swinging up here. What are you doing up here? He's like swinging up here, so I go lower, and so finally he hits the tee. The ball dribbles forward, and he goes, I got to hit. Well, that's not the concept, Connor, but it seems okay. So, but he kept trying. over and over and over again. Couldn't hit, couldn't run, couldn't throw, couldn't catch. Other than that, he was pretty decent. Main 4 basic skills of baseball. But then we get to May 31st, 2005, and it's I forget what little league it was, and he doesn't play because he's always in the dugout, and I think they'd run out of players. It was the bottom of the 7th, and they're down 7-6, and guess who comes out of the dugout? Connor. Like I said, I think they're out of players. And there's 2 outs, bottom of the 7th, as I mentioned, bottom of the end of the game. Now, how many people here have ever played baseball? Okay, pretty good significant number. Now, you notice you don't normally talk to your parents in the stands. It's just not something you do. He goes, Dad, I'm up. He's like waving to me, and I'm just going, oh, Lord, Connor, just concentrate on baseball. He gets up, strike 1, strike 2, ball 1, ball 2, full count. Next pitch comes in. He just rips it down the third base line, just inside the bag. The guy from third comes in. The guy from second goes to third and comes around, and the ball and the guy and the catcher, and they all come together at home plate. They crash together, and the guy catches it, and the ball pops out. And they win the game, 8-7. He's standing on second base. Dad, I got a hit from second. I had such a big lump in my throat, I couldn't even talk. The entire team walks out to second base, puts him on the shoulders, and carries him off the field. This is a guy that never even gotten a hit in his life. But when we got home that night, I sat him down when I could finally talk again, and I said, Connor, it was never about baseball. It was about the fact you never gave up. And you kept trying, you kept trying, you kept trying, and you never gave up. Well, he was told he wasn't going to make it in life, and he wasn't going to make it in sports. So he was 19 when he graduated, but he graduated from Bothell High School last year. And it's kind of a small picture, but he's 6'2", 3.5 grade average, and his senior year at Bothell High School was a leading hitter on the baseball team. This is a guy that was never going to make it. And now he's down in college in San Diego. And it just proves, once again, you just can't. And I tell people all the time, well, you don't understand, Dave. No, I actually do understand. I do understand. It's tough. And you got to have this never give up. And I know we've all known people that have given up. So I would ask you to just, in those private times, as I mentioned, when I get to look at all these eyes, when you want to give up, you've heard all these examples of the gold miner that gives up a foot before the big gold vein, and people that have all these efforts and they just come up short, they don't go that extra mile. Look what happened to Connor. I never gave up. Kyle is 29 now, Connor's 19. They're both doing extremely well. But the big thing is we weren't going to let this defeat us. So you might be asking, well, how about gratitude? Isn't that what you are, the Brooker, that gratitude guy? It's a buddy of mine. I've known Will's father 45 years. Another friend of mine that I've known a long, long time says, you know, you haven't been right for 5 or 6 years after Dana died. I said, I know, it's been tough. He goes, you need to get a gratitude journal. I go, what's a gratitude journal? Has anybody ever heard of a gratitude journal here? One. I hadn't. So that's neat. Everybody heard of a journal? Anybody ever seen a journal? There's everybody. Well, I hadn't. And he says to me, I said, well, what is it? And he goes, well, you write down what you're grateful for every day. I said, well, how does that work? And he goes, well, you just do it. So I ordered one, went to Amazon, ordered a gratitude journal. I got it, and I just put it on the shelf, didn't touch it for 3 months, which is pretty stupid. But then I started writing in it, and I started noticing things that were happening, things that really, really changed, because what it did is it reframes and refocuses everything in every one of your individual lives for what you have versus what you don't have. We are in a world where everybody tells us every day, from media to friends to the car somebody drives, or I got a better car than you, I got a bigger house, I got more money, it doesn't matter. He's always talking about, I have this, you don't, you're this, blah, blah, blah. But when we focus on what we have, it completely reframes everything in your life. So I ended up making my own gratitude journal. This is one I keep Connor's picture in here for my bookmark. It's called the Brooker's Daily Gratitude Journal. I sell them, but I tell people, I don't give a damn. Get a spiral notebook. I don't care. Write it on your hand. Write what you're grateful for. This takes 5 to 6 minutes a day that I write in it. And I just noticed such a huge difference. And then along the way, I did an app. Most of the schools I talked to, they're always, do you have an app? Yeah. Well, I have an app, and I just go, I'm so grateful for Kevin for helping me this morning, and Will, and it just types it, but it's not the same. And with all our, I got a laptop and a tablet and everything, we all have all these things, but there's something about it when you write it. I'm watching a lot of the students out there, and when you go to class, do you type everything into your computer, or do you write it? There's something about writing it. I don't know if that's ever going to go away. Just like I don't know if books will ever completely go away, even though they're on tablets and things now. But I wrote in the front of this, if you think about it, it's like a dream. If you talk about it, it inspires you. But if you write about it, it empowers you. I notice such a huge difference when I write down everything I'm grateful for every day. And I'm talking again, 5 or 6 minutes. So I have friends of mine, these same friends that ask about the circle thing, that PhDs. And they, Brooker, I need a dose of the Brooker, nickname I got years ago. So I do the Brooker, that gratitude guy. I'm sort of depressed today. Can we have some coffee? I want to talk to you. Did you write in your gratitude journal yet? No. Oh, go write in your gratitude journal, then we'll talk. Really? And I go, well, I have to write in every day? And I go, I don't know, do you brush your teeth every day? I mean, it seems to work for me, you know, and so it really, really made a difference. And so what I did, in fact, let's pass out those other things if we can, Will and Kevin, the pieces of paper. So what I did on this is I have a little thing up here. It says the day and the date and the daily number. I'll talk about that in a second. And I just wanted one little book I could write in. Again, it doesn't matter if it's mine, anybody's, I don't care. But a couple of lines talked about special occasion. This is what you're grateful for. Here's the highlight of your day. And here's what you're going to be grateful for. It's called your gratitude intentions. Now, for those of you that know about the subconscious mind, located in the prefrontal cortex, I'm not a doctor, but I know a little bit about it. When you write things that are going to happen to you as if they've already happened, your brain doesn't know the difference between the two, between if it's happened or what you think is going to happen. So you can actually write down, I'm so grateful for something that hasn't even happened yet. So we're going to do something in just a second here, but I want to talk to you about the daily number first. So the daily number to me is 1 to 10. This is how you kind of identify how you're feeling. Now, I don't normally show people my journal. People will look at it occasionally, and this is a brand new one. They last about 3 months, and they'll flip through it. Oh, you're writing it every day. Have you been listening to the presentation? Yeah, I write it every day. But I noticed that it made such a big difference if I stayed consistent with it. So the daily number, 10, one of the best days of your life, 1, maybe one of the toughest days. So you kind of anchor and see where you are, and when you write it down, you can refer back to that later. Think about maybe what happened when you had a low number and it got you back up to a high number, or what was so good that made you feel good on that day. So I would like you all just right now to think about what your daily number is. 10, best day of your life, 1, toughest. Okay? And don't use halves, just get whole numbers. And then I'm going to ask you by show of hands what your daily number is. So if you're a 1 to 5, I don't want you to raise your hand because I don't want anybody embarrassed. It's having a tough day. It happens. But do we have any 6s? Couple. 7s. Probably a few more. 8s. Okay. 9s. And 10s. Okay. All right, so here's what I'd like to do. Everybody has a pen and paper. So you'll see it says on there the day and date and daily number and that kind of thing. You can do that if you want. But here's what I really want you to do. Where it says, I'm so grateful for. I just want you to write down, as best you can, because I know it's kind of in your laps there, the number one thing you're grateful for. It can be a person. It can be a sentence. It can be a one word. It can be whatever it is you're most grateful for. So take about 15 seconds and write that down. Okay, and then once you have that down, just underneath it, the second thing you're most grateful for. Okay, and then the last thing you'll notice, for those of you that have the pre-printed form in the lower left, it says highlight of your day. I know it's about 1 o'clock or 1:30 or so, but so maybe earlier today or yesterday, what was the highlight of your day? What was the number one best thing that happened to you yesterday? You can only pick one thing. Write that down. Okay, and so lastly, just kind of reread those three and just really read them and think about what they mean to you. The number one thing you're grateful for, the number two thing you're grateful for, and what the highlight of your day was yesterday. Just really kind of think about what that means to you. Okay, and now I'm going to poll the audience again. And I want to see if there's any difference after you've looked at that and really thought about that in your life. So once again, 1 to 5, don't raise your hand, but I want to see if the numbers changed at all. So 6s. Okay, a couple still. 7s. Okay, 8s. A couple, well, 2 or 3 more. Great. 9s. Wow. Couple, and any 10s? Cool. Thank you. So you had about 4 or 5 more 8s, a couple of 9s, no 10s. That is a 60-second exercise to show you what that can do for you. So, and as I said, it takes me 5 or 6 minutes, and I don't like to tell people what they're going to write or what they think they should write, and I tell them, for me, almost always number one for me is my health. 64 years old about 2 months ago, and both arms and legs and knees and no hips and replacements and all this kind of thing. Without your health, you don't have a lot. But it just goes down the list. But when you reframe it, you can just see just from that number just changing a bit. Now, you don't know what's going on in somebody's life, but that's how different, or what a difference rather it can make. So I mentioned that I had a mother that was manic depressive. And I think I got some of that depression from her. And I wouldn't even think of raising hands and asking people who suffer with depression, anxiety, mental illness, any of that kind of thing. I'll just tell you that I got some of that from her, and it just irritates the hell out of me. But my mom, before she died, would call me when I was at the University of Washington, and she would take these pills, and she'd get the phone, and she'd go, "David," and she'd shake these sleeping pills. She goes, "I have a bottle of sleeping pills. I will take this entire bottle if you don't come over right now." And I was working in the university bookstore, and I said to Mr. Gallup, "Mr. Gallup, I have to go home. My mom doesn't feel real good." So I'd go over there. What do you say when somebody's going to kill, for gosh sakes? I'm 17 years old. So I just sit there and stuff. But she later died of cancer, as I mentioned. But I think I got some of that from her. Well, after prescription medication killed Dana, and booze and all this other stuff has killed so many friends, I'll be doggone. I'm going to do anything I can to avoid the pill. I just can't. It's just too difficult for me. So I'm going to figure out something else. Well, one day I woke up, and I was about a 2. It's about a year ago. I was really depressed. So I thought, well, big fella, if you're going to practice what you preach, you better get your gratitude journal, and you better go down to Starbucks and write in it right now. So I didn't even take a shower, went down to Starbucks, got a latte, sat and wrote in my gratitude journal, and thought about my health and Connor and Kyle, and we had a roof over our heads and all this kind of thing. And that got me to about a 4, maybe a 5, but I was still having a tough day. Well, I was doing a talk that day. So I drove up to Burlington. I think it was Chamber of Commerce or Rotary, one of those. About 150 people is a pretty good sized group. So I did the talk, and after I was done, people come over and they buy books, and I don't make a big deal of selling books, but if people want to talk to me, and they come and they tell you their stories. It's hard for people to talk in front of groups sometimes, but boy, they'll get you one-on-one, and they want to pour their heart out to you. And this gal comes up to me, and she's got big tears coming down her cheeks, and she goes, "You just changed my life." She goes, "My name is Janice." She goes, "Can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Sure." She gives me a hug, and I said, "My name's Dave." And she goes, "Yeah, I know, I just heard you speak." But she told me, I said, "Can you tell me what it was?" "I can't, because I'll get too upset. That was one of the stories you said. It affected me, and I'm going to get a journal for my son," or something like this. But it just, I said, well, I don't know if I changed your life. Maybe I gave you a tool, an affirmation, a journal, an idea of something to see how you can do this without jumping off a bridge somewhere. So once she left, and then I packed up and I was gone, I walked out to my car. And I don't know about you folks, but if you ever want to know who your best friend is in the world, who's the first person you call when you get really good or really bad news? That to me was one of the indicators. The first person I wanted to call was Connor. Second person was Kyle, my younger son, then my older son. But I got in the car, and I decided I wasn't going to call anybody. But I thought about my number. I was a 9.5 now. And I hadn't taken a bottle of beer. I hadn't snorted Coke. I hadn't popped pills, all this nonsense that all these people that have passed on in my life did to try to cope. I just affected some lives, and I reframed my life around what I was grateful for. Then I was managing a Lowe's home improvement store at the time, and I took the rearview mirrors, and I'm driving back towards Seattle, and I just took the mirror, and I just looked at myself, and I went, I'm so frickin' proud of you for trying to help people. Because the rest of my life is, yeah, where's the lumber? I don't really give a shit. Where are the hammers and nails? I don't know. Look at me. I've got a suit on. What do I know about hardware? Nothing against Lowe's. But it was just, I got to make a difference. And so when you are reframing and refocusing what you have in your life, and then you're making a difference, it's very powerful what it can do for the mindset and that person you see in the mirror. So after that, I got consistent. I wrote in the journal every single day, and I really realized that this is how I saw my life. You need healthy coping mechanisms. So this is what I recommend. I never tell people, I don't use the word should, any of some of those crazy words out there, but I just offer up some possibilities. Embracing gratitude can make such a huge difference. Understanding that you got to clear out your brain. You saw the red paper exercise. Get rid of that crud that's in your past. Don't ever, ever, ever give up. Anybody know who said that originally? Who's credited for that? Winston Churchill. I suggest getting a gratitude journal, a spiral notebook, a piece of paper, I don't care, whatever it is. You can do it on an app if you want, but to reframe and refocus that every way you can, every single day. And the last thing I recommend is sharing it. Because you don't really get the fulfillment, in my opinion, until you share something. That's why I thought of calling Connor and Kyle and telling them about how I made a difference in this gal Janice's life. Well, I realized in my life, I looked back and I saw some of the things I didn't get to share with people and how it impacted me. So I never did the drugs and the coke and the crack and the dope and all this nonsense that's out there. Just didn't want it. But I was kind of an adrenaline junkie. So I skydive and scuba dive and all that kind of stuff. So I decided to make an appointment for skydiving. Anybody ever skydive here? Well, I had 7 of my friends. We're all going together. Dave, sign us up. So I made an appointment at Issaquah skydiving, long since gone. And I noticed then there were 7 of us. And then there were 6. And by about Wednesday that week, we were down to 5. The appointment was for Saturday. On Thursday, I get a call from 2 of the guys. I got a sore throat. I just went. So I walk up the Issaquah skydiving on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, and I go, I'm here for an appointment. Brooke, 10 a.m. He goes, great. Where's all your friends? I go, I don't have any. Just me. All 7 of them canceled. So I went by myself. Now, I don't use PowerPoint, but when I was in the church, they had a big screen. They said, don't you want to throw a few screens? I showed the one me jumping out of the airplane by myself. Nobody did share it with me. It's just me. Look, I was scared, you know what. But it was cool. But it's all by myself. Nobody ever got to see that. So when you find something, you all know what it's like when you're around people that get excited about something. Network marketing, new girlfriend, new boyfriend, new friend. The first thing they want to do is they want to tell you. They want to tell you and get all excited about it, which is great. But that's how you really get to a point where sharing, in this case gratitude, can make such a difference. So I would just offer to you, embrace gratitude as a really, really healthy coping mechanism. It takes as long as it takes. Don't ever give up. Make room for gratitude. Get a gratitude journal and then share it. My feeling standing here today with a 29 and a 19-year-old son and having survived a lot of heartbreak and a lot of tragedy is that gratitude not only can change a life and transform a life, I feel it can save a life. I know it saved mine. Otherwise, I don't think I'd be here. And it can make a huge difference to you guys too. Thanks a lot. Questions at all? I would. Oh, did you have Kevin? Did you sell the tickets? Did you guys give those tickets away?
We did, our officers gave away tickets.
Did you? Did we get the ones where I can? And I want to check on the paper too. But did you guys? Anybody do the tickets? Oh, perfect. Because I would like to give away a book to whoever has the winning number here. So are those the ones? Does everybody have a ticket? Then, cool. So we'll do this. So, anybody here ever written a book? So I wrote a book. I was all proud of myself, and learned how to fly and did some other things I thought were kind of cool. So, a lot of times when they do chambers and rotaries and different things, again, I don't focus when I'm at schools about the books, but I always try to take business cards, and I will run all the business cards together, and then I'll pick one for the person that gets the book. And and by the way, too, and I mentioned it to Will, but I do a video every Monday on gratitude. It's a 2-minute video. And so if you want it, we can either sign up or I'll get your email and I'll send it to you guys. It's just 2 minutes long and it's on a different topic every week. And people seem to like it because it's just a little reminder of something. But somebody said to me, well, you do something every Monday? I said, well, actually I do a video every day on gratitude. Wow. How do you come up with so many new subjects? Really? I says, man, I did a video once on the furnace. I was just thrilled. The furnace was working. It was 15 out. They go, that seems kind of stupid. I go, you're stupid. But anyway, no. But I will tell you this, though. I love the gratitude journal and the book, and I always try to give it away to somebody, just thanking them for coming and so forth. So I was at a Chamber of Commerce. It was actually a couple months ago, and so I pull out the name, and this is a number, and it was, Sally Smith. You're when they all clap. Oh, good going, Sally. And she comes up front, and so I'm kind of on a raised stage thing, and I hand her the book, and I go, here, congratulations. She goes, yeah, you bet. And she's walking back to her seat, and I go, if you'd like later, I'll sign that for you. She goes, that's okay. So you won't have to have me sign it. It's okay. Although I'll pay you $20. Last three, 037. Very good. What's your name? Yeah, please clap. What's your name?
Kylie.
What is it?
Kylie.
How do you spell it?
Kylie.
Kylie. Okay, cool. Congratulations. All right, you guys, thanks a lot for listening.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I definitely went from a 7 to a 9. It was just that little.
Good job.
This is my father.
I got one announcement. Not to interrupt here. As you might know, Dave and I are both in Seattle Rotary. And on March 19th, we're having a program around an organization called We Day. If you want to go, let Will know. We'll buy your lunch. It's going to be at the Westin. And it is going to be remarkable. That's all I can say. To go to We Day, as a high school or junior high school student, you have to do community service to get in. And Microsoft sponsors We Day for $750,000. Allstate sponsors it for $750,000 for the day. And last year, Macklemore sang along with, Martin Luther King Jr. was there. But it's about community service and teaching about community service. So what's going to happen with these high schools is they're going to feed into this Rotoract organization and then into Rotary or Kiwanis or other organizations like Rotary. So if you want to go, let me know. Let Will know. March 19th. Westin. Thank you.
All right, and we have one more announcement. Trey, we have another speaking opportunity, another speaker.